Hi, in research actually we're going to cover some of your stereotypes of research and science that often causes problems in the mentor search because you have a lot of stereotypes of what you think science and research is about that will very narrow down the type of research project you're excited about. So if we look at what students are interested in researching, we often see a lot of the same topics, and one challenge is often students might be too narrow in what they think they need to research. And some of this might be you think you have to research certain topics that are hard or good to research because you think that's what colleges are looking for. And as a result, a lot of students start to want to research the same thing, or students get too narrow in what they think is a topic they'll be excited about. So we'll step through what research is defined as and what science is defined as by the National Science Foundation, a major funding agency of research. Most of these stereotypes are shaped by most students take biology in 10th grade, so there's a lot of interest in the field of biology. There's a stereotype that you have to do biological research because that's what smart students do. And because high schools tend to focus on chemistry, biology, physics, students tend to be very narrow, thinking those disciplines are the only thing you can do research on, when actually those are tools that lots of researchers in lots of fields use to solve research problems. So first of all, we have to separate science and research. So they are defined differently. So hey, I have the definition up on the screen, and you'll notice that we can do research on any subject. So you can design a research study in humanities, you can design a research study in business. So in business and industry, research will look differently than it does in academics. And we have a whole separate presentation that deals with that, because in industry, people say, I'm going to research this. And even in high school, you might be told, oh, go research this. That'll look very different compared to potentially what academic research looks like. So just keep that in mind. So two things I wanted to mention quickly is you'll hear competitions a lot and independent study at the high school level related to what it means to do research. So competitions are very much a high school thing. In academic research, you don't go and win awards after briefly doing research. Your reward, focus on other presentations we have, is your reward is you win research grants and you publish your research in academic journals. That's what you're working towards. There's not a lot of short-term competitions related around research. Independent study is something used at college level and high school level. So if you're working with a research mentor, you're usually going to be working on a project they're working on. Independent study usually means you pick a project you're interested in doing and you're just asking a mentor to help you out. That's a bit more work for the mentor because they're trying to use their expertise to help you on something they may not be quite an expert in. So independent study is usually you're choosing a particular problem you're excited about, and then you're trying to find a mentor who may be able to help you on that project. So very quickly, when you think of science, you often think of natural sciences. So that's one stereotype you want to erase. You are taught the natural sciences in high school. There definitely is some more grant money in the natural sciences, but if we look at how the National Science Foundation funds science, this is what the National Science Foundation defines as being science. So what you miss out on is a lot of the social sciences are science. So as you consider a mentor, consider broadening your perspective of what you think a good and a hard science research project might be about. So if we want to jump to, okay, if that's science, then what is the humanities? So I throw up some example there of what we might define as humanities, but here's the interesting thing, is typically you'll have people from humanities on research grants with scientists working all together. So if you have an interest in history or if you have an interest in communication, it's pretty easy to find someone who's using that with another field of science together. So it's okay to like history and psychology. It's okay to like economics and cultural studies. There's probably someone doing research that combines those two areas. So you can, again, going back to our definition of what research is, you can do a research question and design a research study that meets the definition of research. And in a minute, we'll find that science is not the natural sciences. You can apply the scientific process to research question in any discipline or field of study as long as the experimental design would allow it. So what is science? So you're used to a very simple scientific method framework that is very linear, that is step by step. And that's just not how science works. And when you look for a mentor and you look for a project, you might think that you're going to get a very linear project that goes from start to finish. And most likely you won't get a very linear project. So let's jump to this graphic. It's also posted on our website. This is from UC Berkeley. They actually got a National Science Foundation grant to design this graphic. That shows that how science work is very circular instead of linear. So there's a lot of interrelationships between the different steps of science. What I want to step you through is that when you work with a research mentor, they mainly have you focus on one aspect or one of the bubbles here for a very short-term project. So a few things students get wrong with this diagram I'm going to focus on. But we talk about curiosity a lot in this course, and you'll see the diagram mentions curiosity, is you have to be curious and be excited on something to discover, or you're not going to be very motivated to carry that project to completion. You'll get bored. Next thing students often get wrong is exploring literature is a huge part of research, and sometimes a project might be that a research mentor just needs you to go in depth in a very in-depth literature review to help them make a decision about a curiosity they have, the next project they want to take on. They need you to do a literature review to help them understand a different way they could be using different methods in a project. So half of research is going to be reading. A lot of students don't understand that all the research articles you'll read in a research preparation course, you're doing that because that's what research is. It's really exploring the literature as much as it is testing ideas. Another thing students don't understand is the iterative process of gathering data, and iterative means you keep gathering, interpreting, gathering, interpreting. You might have a whole project where you gather data and the interpretation is that the data doesn't support the hypothesis, or the data is bad, or the method was bad, and your whole project is just showing that something isn't going to work. So research is a lot about failure, and students misunderstand even in the testing ideas phase that you might have a big project and it just shows you that something isn't going to work, and that's good. That's part of research. And finally, you just don't work on your research for a couple months and then run off and publish it. There's a very iterative process to how you publish, and typically you don't publish in a research journal. You will go and present your research at a conference to get feedback and peer review, and after getting lots of feedback and peer review on presentations on your research ideas, only then would you go out and publish. And students seem to have a misperception that you very quickly do your research and go ahead and publish it. You might do that, but it's going to have a very low impact of where it will be published. If you want to publish your research ideas in a high impact area where lots of people will read it, then you have to do lots of feedback and peer review in the short term before you're ready to publish in a major research publication that lots of people will read. So as you search for a research mentor, once again, keep in mind, don't be too narrow of what you think is science. Don't be too narrow on what you think is hard to research. All fields of study can have a very difficult question to work on. And keep in mind of how science works, because that might have an impact on the type of project you'll be handed off.